Good morning, and welcome to the Hamilton Police Investigative Services Building. My name is Crystal Ernst, and I'm the Public Information Officer for the Hamilton Police Service. Today, we will be providing you with an update on the increase in shootings in Hamilton over the past few weeks and what the police are doing to address this issue. At this time, I would like to bring forward the Hamilton Service Police Chief Frank Bergen.
Thank you very much, Crystal Lee, and really appreciate the opportunity to address what has been our experience over the last 2 weeks in the city of Hamilton. Surprisingly, we're at 22 shootings. That's numbers that we have not seen since 2019. I think it's really important that the community understands what your role is, and also to have the confidence that the Hamilton Police Service is not resting on this. We are going to respond, and you're going to learn from Superintendent Marty Schulenberg, as well as Detective Sergeant Steve Berazuk, about what we are doing, and specifically about our shooting response team. What I thought was important is also to address the fact that we've had difficulties in conversation with community when we will depict something being targeted. And what in fact is really alarming about what is occurring in the last couple of weeks is there is this reckless disregard for public safety, as we're seeing that these are happening at any hours of the day, in many cases during broad daylight. I'm going to ask that they're going to run a little bit of a video here just to give you an example of why I say this should be something that's concerning to all of us. If that's not alarming, then I don't know what is. Moments before, these punks thought it was a good idea to target another gangster. What they did was you saw a 5-year-old walking down that alleyway coming home from school. And that's expected of what we want a normal life to be. I can't help but think that's what Hamilton envisioned when they said this is a place to raise a child and to age gracefully. We should all be alarmed. It's not acceptable. We all have a role to play. I'm very confident that the role that the Hamilton Police has embarked on is an important first step, but we have to remind you that we need to do it together with our community. We need to be calling out this action. We need to be able to communicate to the police when we know that people are running around on our streets with guns. We know what they're doing in our homes, and what we're doing about it is we're going to speak up, and we're asking you to do that, because together, stronger, safer is how we're going to get out of this cycle. I'd like to call upon Crystal Lee now to take this back.
Thank you, Chief Bergen. Now I'd like to bring forward Superintendent Martin Schulenberg of the Investigative Services Building to speak to us about what we are doing here at Hamilton Police and to talk about the shooting response team.
Thank you, Crystal Lee, and thank you, Chief, for your comments. As introduced, my name is Marty Schulenberg. I'm the Superintendent of the Investigative Services Division for the Hamilton Police Service. The shootings, whether they're targeted or not, whether there's a victim or not, are treated seriously by us, and we understand that they severely undermine the community's sense of safety. To address this, our service recently instituted permanently the shooting response team. This team's mission is to tackle incidents of reckless gunfire that result in serious injuries or endanger individuals and properties, which enhances safety in our community. Creating a dedicated shooting response team has allowed us to move from generalist to specialists in the investigations of shootings. This team works in collaboration with other units within the service, sharing information and resources. Investigating these crimes is often very labor-intensive, and our investigators are frequently met with uncooperative or hesitant witnesses and victims, and there are many reasons for that. Since its inception, the team has carried out 68 investigations, leading to the arrest of 27 individuals. Of the 27 individuals arrested, 56% already had a prior weapons charge or incident that they were involved in. These shootings are often retaliatory in nature and typically revolve around the use and trafficking of illicit drugs in our community. For this reason, the shooting response team is strategically located within the Investigative Services Division, and more specifically, the Major Drugs and Gangs Unit, within steps of both the Homicide and Intelligence offices. In 2024, as the Chief mentioned, we have had 22 shootings year to date. This level of violence in our community is unacceptable. We continue to request help from our community. We know that somebody knows something, and we're encouraging those individuals to come forward. The shooting response team is seeing results already because of an all-hands-on-deck approach. We know that those who are responsible for those shootings, we often know them in advance, and it's just a matter of time before we identify them. In each investigation, it is our goal to secure sufficient evidence to make an arrest before the retaliatory cycle continues. With the SRT, the shooting response team, in place, we can have more confidence that this is possible. Those involved in a shooting in Hamilton can expect us at their door. If you know something about a shooting in Hamilton, we implore you to come to our door. Together, we are stronger and safer. Turn it back over to Krista Lee.
Thank you, Superintendent Schulenberg, for providing us with a further look at what the shooting response team is. Now I'd like to invite up Detective Sergeant Steve Berzuk of the Major Guns and Drugs Unit to talk about those shootings specifically within our community. Detective Sergeant?
Morning, everybody. Thank you. Since May 6th, our unit has investigated 6 shootings that have occurred at all hours of the day, including these disturbing brazen daylight shootings that you have witnessed over the last couple of weeks, one being specifically the video the Chief showed. Those videos, that video in particular, amongst others, are current active investigations in which we require the public's assistance. If you have information regarding these or other shootings in our city, I am asking you to please reach out to our unit at 905-546-4883. That's the phone number for Detective Matthew Dugdale. He's standing in the room to my left. I'm also asking that you could email us at the shooting response team at hamiltonpolice.ca to provide us with information. Recently, we've received some tremendous community support at the scene of the Cannon and Kinraid shooting, where members of that community actively participated in our investigation. They eagerly provided us video and provided us statements. This has allowed us and the investigators to promptly develop leads and obtain further evidence that would otherwise have been lost if not for their assistance. For this, we are extremely grateful. Too often, we're met with shooting scenes and victims of shootings who are unwilling to assist us or the investigators. This slows the speed at which we can collect and preserve evidence, and ultimately slows our goal of quickly and safely apprehending the criminals involved. I would continue to advocate for the public's assistance in any of these shootings that have happened throughout this year and any year gone by, so that we can effectively apprehend those involved in some of the most violent and dangerous acts in our city. Thank you. I'll turn it back over to Constable Ernst.
Thank you, Detective Sergeant Berzuk, for giving us a further look on what exactly is taking place within our community. I'd now like to welcome any questions that are within the room. I'd like to also speak to the community and say, if you do have a question, please comment below and we'd be happy to address any comment or concern within our community. Alternatively, you can always contact us at the Public Affairs Office within the Hamilton Police Service at 905-546-4901, or alternatively by email, publicaffairs@hamiltonpolice.ca. Now I'd like to open it up to members of the media. I'd ask that you have one question, one follow-up question, and then we would move forward to the next question.
In recent years, we've seen, there's a spate of shootings out there in the midsummer, towards the late summer. This is pretty early, but it's up in January, just like the beginning of spring. Is there anything to explain why we're seeing
So for the members of the community, the Hamilton Spectator is asking about the season of shootings, stating that it typically is seen within the summer months, and is there any idea as to why it is this early on in the year? I'd like to invite Superintendent Schulenberg back to the podium.
Yeah, thank you for your question. I don't know that there's a typical season for shootings. I think what's concerning us is that we're at 22 shootings for the year. That is year-to-date far well and above what we've seen over the last number of years. In fact, the last time we had a number even approaching that was 2019. And that's the reason we're here today, is because we do have a concern at the rate of increase that we're seeing. It is something that has our full attention, and hence the reason that we're here today is to appeal for public assistance in relation to anybody that has information for those shootings. We do have concerns, of course, as we head into summertime, of course. There's more people out and about. That has our concern as well. But I think in particular, the shootings we've seen recently, it's the brazen nature of them and the broad daylight aspect of it as well. All of these things together create a very dangerous environment, and that is what has our concern.
Do you have any indication of what might explain this? Is there something knowledge about drugs moving through the community? Is there rate, anything like that, or is it all?
Sure. I won't comment on any one investigation, but I feel very confident in saying that it's the combination of drug trafficking and use within the city that usually leads to a cycle of violence. I made the comment earlier about the number of individuals that we have arrested already that actually have prior convictions or have been involved in weapons offenses. This is in fact a reality for us. It indicates that this is a complex issue, and we're certainly putting our mind towards that. And again, this is why we need that public assistance. You know, I also mentioned that many of these shootings are retaliatory in nature, and that also has our attention as we move forward. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, I'd like to turn it over here, Global News.
Hi, yes, I guess my question would be for whoever is able to answer it. I know we were speaking with a retired Toronto homicide detective who was saying that a lot of the problems are stemming from the court systems being backlogged and just overwhelmed. And like you see the people who are arrested with 8 counts of breach of probation. I'm just wondering if there's anything that Hamilton Police are maybe hoping for, you know, the court system to address these issues and maybe make penalties stiffer for people who are caught doing these things.
Thank you, Lisa Pileski, Global News. The question is, are we seeing that a repeat concern is within the court system, and have we seen this in the Hamilton Police Service?
We're very fortunate in Hamilton that we have a great relationship with the Ministry of the Attorney General, and specifically our Crown Attorney, Eric Taylor. We have this conversation, and it is something that illustrates again that Hamilton is not immune to what you've indicated for Toronto and the Greater Toronto-Hamilton area. We too are victim to what is, I guess, arguably a loose bail system that we are seeing. I can tell you at the level of the Ontario Association Chiefs of Police, it is a conversation that we are having with the ministry. It is incumbent upon us to put a case forward. You heard earlier, as Detective Sergeant Steve Berezouk has said as well, that we are painstakingly gathering the evidence, and that evidence includes the participation of our community in order to shore up a case to have success. But again, we have no control over putting a good case forward and a decision made to release people. What we are seeing is the pattern, and many times we are meeting people that we've already had many interactions with. And we also are working with our policing partners all across this province to make sure that we are aware of what is the cycle. We have a very robust relationship now, certainly with our rope squad from the province, but also in the energy that we are using for offender management and making it possible for us to have funds available to work with our policing partners in order to actually seek out people who are free in our community that are causing such havoc.
Thank you, Chief Frank Bergen. Any follow-up? Okay, moving on.
You mentioned that victims are generally cooperative in these sorts of investigations. Can you kind of go more into why that is and what message you would have for the victims, for the witnesses who are reluctant to come forward and talk?
Thank you, Eric from CHCH News. The question for the community is, do you find that it's a barrier with regards to victims and witnesses not coming forward and aiding in the investigation? I'd like to turn it over to Detective Sergeant Steve Berzuk.
Yeah, thanks for that question. It's a good question. I think there's not one specific answer to that question. It's pretty complex. But what we've seen is that there's always, more often than not, a hesitation to want to cooperate with the police. They can often be, deemed a rat or they're belittled at the street level for that. That's a problem. And that inhibits them coming forward. Oftentimes we see that the people involved are in fact involved in some type of subculture within the city, and they're fearful of even speaking to us because they too could become arrested for whatever the case may be. And so I think what I would like to say to everybody and to the community is that there are steps that we can take here at the police service to help protect people and to help shelter them and make them feel safe when they want to come in and talk to us. And in fact, and that's exactly what I'm doing here today, is that I'm encouraging people to come in. That what we're dealing with at that moment in time is that specific shooting, and that is what's important to us. And I'll use a small example of perhaps there is a minor breach. I'm really not interested necessarily in that if that's going to lead me to solving a more violent shooting. So there's ways that we can work with people and also make them safe as well. I won't get into the complexities of that, but I would encourage everybody, if you have information with respect to a shooting, regardless, please contact us so that we can help and apprehend the offenders.
CHCH News, any follow-up? Any other questions for the room? The Spectator?
Yeah, we had heard that some of these shootings were retaliatory. You just used the word rat. So I'm curious, have you guys identified any particular gangs that are involved in these shootings? Do we know if there's certain groups that attack each other and there's been multiple instances?
For the members of the community, the Spectator is asking, are we finding that there are isolated groups retaliatory in nature linked to these shootings? Again, I'll turn it back over to Detective Sergeant Steve Berzuk.
Again, thank you for that question. The number of shootings are obviously the concern and why we're here today. With every shooting that we investigate, we're looking for linkages to see if they're in fact linked to perhaps a different incident, to see if are they in fact a retaliatory incident or are they isolated. And I can tell you that we don't get the answer all the time, but that is certainly something that we seek. We're seeking out the motive for why these shootings are happening, and certainly some of them are in fact connected. And at the appropriate times, we release that information to advise the public that yes, they were in fact connected or related in some fashion. I wouldn't be in a position to tell you today which ones are specifically linked, as these are ongoing investigations. It's important for us to maintain the integrity of that evidence, but at the appropriate time, I certainly would release that to let people know that yeah, sometimes they certainly are. They are linked, and specifically to gangs. I can't comment specifically on one gang versus the other. Again, we've heard information about drug subculture within the city, often fueling the shootings, and I would certainly agree with that statement and that comment for certain.
This concludes our news conference for today. I'd like to thank the community for tuning in and listening to what we as the Hamilton Police Service are doing about shootings within our community. Thank you.